Captain Jake Morrison stared at the view screen of the UES horizon, his hands gripping the armrests of his command chair. Before him stretched the dark void of space, dotted with distant stars that had never been seen by human eyes. This was the moment humanity had dreamed of for centuries. Their first journey beyond the solar system. Status report, Lisa. Jake called to his chief science officer. Dr. Lisa Carter looked up from her console, her face glowing in the blue light of the displays. All systems normal, Captain. We're holding steady in the Proxima Centauri system. No signs of intelligent life detected so far. Jake nodded and turned to his tactical officer. Ryan, anything on the sensors? Commander Ryan Hughes shook his head. Nothing unusual, sir. Just the usual cosmic background radiation and some asteroid. Fields, wait. He paused, his eyes widening as he stared at his screen. Captain, I'm picking up something massive on long-range sensors. It's big. Really big. Put it on screen, Jake ordered. The main display flickered and changed to show deep space ahead of their ship. At first, there was nothing but darkness and stars. Then, slowly, shapes began to emerge from the black. Ships. Dozens of them. Each one was easily 10 times the size of the horizon. God, whispered Lieutenant Amy Walsh from her communications station. Captain, those ships. There. Not human. Jake felt his heart racing. First contact. This was really happening. After all the years of wondering if humanity was alone in the universe, here was the answer. They were not alone. The alien ships were beautiful in a terrifying way. They looked like they were made of crystal and metal, with smooth curves that caught the light of the nearby star. They moved through space with a grace that human ships could never match. Each one was a work of art, but Jake could see the weapon ports along their hulls. These were warships. Amy, can you establish communication? Jake asked. I'm trying, sir. They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies. It looks like mathematical sequences, very complex patterns. That's how we always imagined first contact would work, Lisa said excitedly. Mathematics is universal. They're trying to talk to us. The largest of the alien ships moved closer. It was massive, easily a mile long, with towers and spires that gleamed like diamonds. Smaller ships flanked it on both sides, their formations perfect. Captain Amy called out, her voice tense. I'm getting a clear signal now. The computer is trying to translate it. Put it through, Jake said. The bridge speakers crackled to life. A strange musical voice filled the air, speaking in sounds that no human throat could make. Then the computer's translation followed, mechanical and cold. Unknown vessel. You have entered the territory of the Kethver Collective. State your nature and submit to our authority. Acknowledge our dominance over this space. Prepare for inspection and judgment. Jake felt his blood run cold. Submit to their authority? Acknowledge their dominance? This wasn't the peaceful first contact that humanity had hoped for. These aliens were making demands. Sir Ryan said quietly, their weapons are charging. I'm reading massive energy buildups across their entire fleet. Jake's mind raced. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment, but not like this. Not with demands for submission from the first aliens they met. Earth had sent them out here to explore, to represent humanity with dignity and strength. They couldn't just surrender at the first sign of trouble. Amy, open a channel, Jake ordered. Channel open, sir? Jake stood up from his chair and straightened. His uniform. Whatever he said next would be humanity's first words to an alien species. History would remember this moment. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Horizon, representing the human species and the United Earth government. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship among the stars. However, we do not submit to any authority other than our own. Earth and humanity bow to no one. We are free people, and we will remain free. If you wish to talk, we will talk as equals. If you wish to fight, then you have made a grave mistake. The bridge fell silent. Jake's words hung in the air like thunder. Lisa stared at him with wide eyes. Ryan's hand moved to his weapons console. Amy held her breath, waiting for a response. On the main screen, the alien fleet began to move. Ships spread out into what could only be an attack formation. Their weapons glowed brighter, and more ships appeared from behind the larger vessels. Captain Amy whispered, "They're responding." The alien voice returned, but this time it sounded different. Angry. The translation that followed made Jake's stomach drop. "You dare to refuse the Kethfer Collective? You dare to challenge our authority? No species has ever spoken such words to us and lived. You have declared war upon the greatest power in this galaxy. You have sealed the fate of your entire race. Prepare to face the consequences of your arrogance." "War," Lisa gasped. "We didn't declare war. We just said we wouldn't submit." But Jake realized with growing horror that something had gone terribly wrong. The aliens seemed to think that humanity had just declared war on them. The translation software must have made an error. What they meant as a statement of independence had been understood as a declaration of war. "Ryan, how long until there?" "In weapons range?" Jake asked. 3 minutes, sir. Maybe less." "Amy, try to clarify our message. Tell them we don't want war." "I'm trying, Captain, but they're not responding to our hails anymore." The alien ships moved closer, their weapons now glowing like small suns. Jake could see smaller fighter craft launching from the larger vessels, swarming toward the horizon like angry insects. "All hands, battle stations," Jake announced over the ship's intercom. "This is not a drill. Prepare for combat." Red lights flashed throughout the bridge as the crew rushed to their positions. The Horizon was a exploration ship, not a warship. They had some defensive weapons, but nothing that could match what they were facing. Captain Ryan reported, "I count 47 ships in their fleet. Our weapons are charged, but sir, we can't win this fight." Jake knew Ryan was right. They were outnumbered and outgunned by an impossible margin. But they were also the only humans in this part of space. If they died here, Earth might never know what happened to them. "Plot a course back to Earth," Jake ordered. "Maximum speed." "Course plotted, sir." "Ryan, prepare to fire all weapons on my mark. Make some noise so they know we're not going down without a fight." The alien fighters were almost on top of them. Now, energy beams lanced through space, missing the horizon by mere meters. The hull shook as near misses heated the ship's armor. "Mark," Jake shouted. The Horizon's weapons fired, sending bright pulses of energy toward the alien fighters. 2 of the small craft exploded in brilliant flashes of light. It wasn't much, but it was something. "Jump to hyperspace now," Jake ordered. The stars stretched into lines as the Horizon's faster-than-light drive engaged. In seconds, they were racing through hyperspace, leaving the alien fleet far behind. But Jake knew this was only the beginning. Humanity had just made first contact with an alien species. Within minutes, they had somehow declared war on them. As the Horizon raced back toward Earth with news that would change everything, Jake wondered if they had just doomed their entire species, the galaxy's most vicious species. The Kethfer Collective now considered humanity an enemy, and Jake had a terrible feeling that they had no idea what they had just gotten themselves into. Admiral Patricia Stone sat in her office at Earth Defense Command, staring at the report on her desk. She had read it 3 times, but the words still seemed impossible to believe. Humanity's first contact with alien life had ended in a declaration of war. The coffee in her cup had gone cold hours ago as she tried to process what Captain Morrison and his crew had experienced. "Admiral," her aide called from the doorway. "President Davis is here to see you." President Kevin Davis walked into the office, his face grave. Behind him came Dr. Richard Hayes, Earth's top expert on languages, and General Robert Chen from the Space Defense Force. The small room suddenly felt very crowded. "Tell me this is some kind of mistake, Patricia," the president said, settling into a chair across from her desk. "I wish I could, sir. But Captain Morrison's report is clear. They encountered a massive alien fleet, tried to communicate peacefully, and somehow ended up in a shooting match. The aliens think we declared war on them." Dr. Hayes leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. "I've been studying the communication logs from the Horizon. The translation software made several critical errors. What the aliens intended as a formal territorial greeting was interpreted as a demand for surrender, and our response, which was meant to establish our independence, was translated as a direct challenge to their authority. "So this whole thing is based on a misunderstanding?" General Chen asked. "Yes, but that doesn't matter now," Admiral Stone replied. "The aliens called themselves the HFY Collective. According to the data we gathered, they control dozens of star systems. They have technology far beyond ours, and they believe we challenge them to war." President Davis rubbed his temples. "How long before they reach Earth?" "We don't know. The horizon made it back to our solar system. But long-range sensors are picking up alien scout ships at the edge of our space. They're watching us. On the other side of the galaxy, in a crystalline chamber aboard the massive HFY Command ship, High Commander Valthera studied holographic displays showing the human solar system. The chamber was filled with other HFY officers, their tall, elegant forms moving gracefully around the room. Their skin had a blue-silver color that seemed to shift in the light, and their large eyes held an intelligence that was both ancient and cold. "Battlelord Croshfan," Valthera said, her voice like music played on crystal chimes. "What do you make of these humans?" Croshfan stepped forward, his armor gleaming. "They are small and weak, High Commander. Their ship barely damaged too. Of our fighters before fleeing, their technology is primitive. I do not understand why they would dare challenge us." "That is what concerns me," Valthera replied. "No species has ever declared war on the HFY Collective. We have conquered hundreds of worlds. We are feared across the galaxy. Why would these humans be so bold unless they possess some terrible weapon we cannot detect?" War Commander Zeptile, who had led the original encounter with the humans, spoke up. "Perhaps they are simply insane, High Commander. Some species lose their minds when they first encounter our power." "Possible," Valthara mused. "But we cannot take chances. If they have some secret advantage, we must discover it before they can use it against us. Send more scout ships to their system, watch them closely, learn everything about their defenses." Back on Earth, Dr. Hayes worked frantically in his laboratory with his team. Dr. Maria Santos and Professor Alex Turner had been analyzing alien communications for days, trying to find a way to fix the translation errors. "We need to establish proper communication," Dr. Hayes said, pacing back and forth. "If we can just talk to them properly, we can explain the misunderstanding." "But how do we reach them?" Dr. Santos asked. "Our messages might be translated wrong again. We could make things worse. We have to try," Professor Turner said. "The alternative is war with a species that could destroy us." Meanwhile, in space, near Jupiter, Captain Morrison commanded a small patrol of Earth's newest ships. The Use Defiance and Use Resolute flew alongside the horizon, scanning for alien activity. Earth's entire space fleet consisted of only 12 ships, all designed for exploration and research. They were not built for war, Captain, reported his new tactical officer, Lieutenant Steve Parker. "Long-range sensors are detecting movement near Pluto. Multiple contacts, moving fast. Put it on screen," Morrison ordered. The display showed 3 sleek alien ships approaching the outer planets. They were smaller than the massive vessels Morrison had encountered at Proxima Centauri, but they still dwarfed the human ships. "They're scanning us," reported Communications Officer Lieutenant Danny Clark. "Very detailed scans. They're learning everything about our ships." Morrison felt frustrated. The aliens were studying Earth's defenses while humanity could do nothing to stop them. Any aggressive move might trigger the war that everyone was trying to avoid. On Mars, at the largest shipyard in the solar system, engineer Nicole Brooks worked around the clock with her team. They were trying to retrofit human ships with better weapons and armor. The work was desperate and rushed, but it was all they could do. "These pulse cannons weren't designed for ship-to-ship combat," her assistant warned. "They might overload if we push them too hard. Then we'll have to hope they don't overload until after they've done some damage," Nicole replied grimly. The situation grew worse when the HFY scouts began intercepting human colony ships. 3 civilian vessels carrying families to the outer colonies were stopped and boarded. The aliens didn't harm the humans, but they studied them like specimens in a laboratory. Captain Julie Brown, commanding the colony ship New Hope, sent a tense report back to Earth. The aliens beamed aboard without warning. They examined our people, our technology, everything. They seemed especially interested in our weapons, even though we barely have any. They let us go, but they're still following us. These encounters convinced both sides that the other was preparing for war. The Kethper saw humans spreading throughout their solar system and assumed they were positioning for attack. The humans saw alien ships watching their every move and believed invasion was imminent. President Davis called an emergency meeting of Earth's leaders. In the Situation Room deep beneath the Capitol, the most powerful people on the planet gathered. Around a large table covered with reports and star charts, "Ladies and gentlemen," the president began, "we face the greatest crisis in human history. An alien empire believes we have declared war on them. Our attempts at communication have failed. They are studying our defenses and following our ships. We must assume that war is coming whether we want it or not." Admiral Stone stood and activated a holographic display. "Our entire fleet consists of 12 ships. Intelligence estimates suggest the Kethfer have thousands. They have been spacefaring for thousands of years, while we only achieved faster-than-light travel last year. In a straight fight, we cannot win." "Then what do you suggest?" asked General Chen. "We have one advantage," Admiral Stone continued. "They don't understand us. Seem to think we have some secret weapon, some reason for our confidence. Need to use that confusion to our benefit." Strategic Advisor Dr. Helen Mitchell leaned forward. "I propose Operation Longshot. Instead of waiting for them to attack us, we strike first. Not to win, but to convince them that we're too dangerous to fight." "You want to attack an empire that could destroy us?" the president asked. "I want to attack them in a way that makes them think twice about destroying us," Dr. Mitchell replied. "If we fight defensively, they'll learn our weaknesses. If we attack first, using tactics they don't expect, we might convince them that war with humanity is too costly." President Davis looked around the room at the faces of Earth's leaders. These people held the fate of humanity in their hands. Whatever they decided in the next few minutes would determine whether the human race survived its first interstellar war. "Very well," the president said finally. "Prepare Operation Longshot. May God help us all." In space, the Kethfer scouts continued their watching and waiting, unaware that the small, seemingly helpless species they were studying was about to do something that no other race in the galaxy had ever dared to attempt. 3 weeks after the emergency meeting, Earth's entire space fleet gathered near the asteroid belt. 12 ships hung in the darkness of space, looking tiny against the vast emptiness around them. Captain Morrison, now promoted to admiral, stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UES Horizon, watching the other vessels take their positions. The ships looked different now. Engineer Nicole Brooks and her teams had worked day and night to add weapons and armor to the exploration vessels. The smooth lines of the original designs were now broken by weapon pods and shield generators. The ships still looked small and fragile compared to what they would face, but they were the best humanity could build. "All ships report ready, Admiral," reported Lieutenant Amy Walsh from her communications station. Morrison nodded and opened a channel to the entire fleet. "Attention all ships. In a few hours, we will jump to the Kethfer forward base at Wolf 359. This will be the first time humans have attacked an alien position. We are outnumbered and outgunned, but we have something they don't expect. We have the element of surprise and the willingness to do whatever it takes to protect Earth." On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Captain Lisa Carter listened to Morrison's words while checking the readings on her science console. She had been promoted to ship command after volunteering for the mission. Next to her, Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker prepared his squadron of fighter craft. These small one-person ships had been built in the Mars shipyards using every trick the engineers could think of. "Remember," Morrison continued, "our goal is not to win this battle. Our goal is to make them think twice about attacking Earth. We want them to believe that humanity is too dangerous to fight, make every shot count, and make them remember us." Far ahead of the human fleet, the Kethfer had established a forward base in the Wolf 359 system. The base consisted of 3 massive space stations and a fleet of 50 warships. War Commander Zeftel commanded the base, studying reports about human activity in their home system. "The humans continue to confuse me," Zeftel said to his second in command. "They have only 12 ships, yet they show no signs of fear. Their communications suggest they are preparing for something, but what could they possibly do against us?" "Perhaps they are trying to build more ships," suggested the tactical officer. "Possible. Our scouts report that their construction capabilities are limited. They could not build enough ships to threaten us, even if they had years. Yet they act as if they have some advantage we cannot see." On Earth, President Davis sat in the war room with his advisors, watching the countdown to Operation Longshot. Dr. Richard Hayes had managed to establish a partial communication link with the Kethver, but the aliens had ignored all attempts to explain the misunderstanding. "They're not listening to us," Dr. Hayes reported. "Every message we send is either ignored or interpreted as psychological warfare. They seem to believe that any communication from us is an attempt to trick them." "Then we proceed with the operation," President Davis said. "Patricia, give the order." Admiral Stone nodded and spoke into her communicator. "Admiral Morrison, you are authorized to begin Operation Longshot." "Good luck." In space near the asteroid belt, Morrison received the message and turned to his crew. The bridge was quiet except for the hum of the ship's systems. Everyone knew this might be humanity's last chance to avoid total war. "All ships, prepare for jump to hyperspace. Target, Wolf 359 system. You go in fast, hit them hard, and get out. Jumping in 3, 2, 1, mark." The stars stretched into lines as the human fleet entered hyperspace. For the next hour, they raced through the strange realm between normal space, carrying with them the hopes and fears of an entire planet. When they emerged from hyperspace, the Kethver base was directly ahead. The alien space stations were beautiful and terrifying, built from the same crystal-like material as their ships. The 50 warships guarding the base immediately began moving toward the human fleet. "My God," whispered Captain Carter from the UES Defiance. "Look at the size of those things." The smallest Kethver ship was twice the size of the largest human vessel. The space stations were so massive that they created their own gravity fields. Energy weapons began charging across the alien fleet, lighting up space with a deadly glow.
"Oh!"
"Ships, attack pattern Alpha," Morrison ordered. "Steve, launch your fighters." Lieutenant Colonel Parker's fighter squadron launched from the fleet's carriers, 24 small craft racing toward the enemy. The fighters were fast and maneuverable, designed to use speed instead of armor for protection. The battle began with a devastating exchange of fire. Kethver energy beams lanced through space, missing the human ships by mere meters. The human fleet scattered, using a formation that the aliens had never seen before. Instead of flying in neat lines like most civilized species, the humans flew in wild, unpredictable patterns. "What are they doing?" War Commander Zeftel demanded from his command station. "Their formation makes no sense. They're flying like madmen." That was exactly what Morrison had hoped for. Human military doctrine was based on chaos and unpredictability, developed from centuries of warfare on Earth. The Kethver, who had conquered hundreds of worlds using organized, disciplined tactics, had never faced anything like it. The EU's Resolute, commanded by Captain Brian Taylor, dove beneath the alien formation and fired all weapons at once. The ship's experimental pulse cannons overloaded immediately after firing, but not before punching through the shields of a Kethver cruiser. The alien ship, damaged but not destroyed, spun out of formation. "First blood to us," Morrison announced over the fleet channel. "Keep them guessing." Parker's fighters swarmed around the larger alien ships like angry insects. The Kethver had trouble targeting such small, fast-moving craft. 2 fighters managed to penetrate the defenses of a space station and detonate their entire payload. Against the station's main power core, the explosion lit up space like a small sun. But humanity's advantages were temporary. The Kethver quickly adapted to the chaotic human tactics. Their superior numbers and firepower began to tell. The EU's Courage was the first human ship to fall, overwhelmed by energy fire from 3 alien cruisers. "We're losing ships," reported Amy Walsh. "The Courage is gone, and the Defender is taking heavy damage." Morrison watched the tactical display. With growing desperation, the human fleet was giving better than they had received, but they were still outnumbered 4-1. Soon they would be overwhelmed. That's when Lieutenant Danny Clark did something that changed everything. His fighter had been damaged in the attack on the space station, and his engines were failing. Instead of trying to escape, he turned his fighter toward the largest HFY command ship. "Danny, what are you doing?" Parker called over the radio. "Something they'll never forget," Danny replied. He pushed his damaged fighter to maximum speed, racing toward the alien command ship. The HFY tried to stop him, but he was moving too fast and too erratically. At the last second, he overloaded his fighter's power core. The explosion tore through the HFY command ship's hull, causing massive damage. The ship didn't explode, but it was crippled. Alarms rang through the alien fleet as they realized what had happened. The human had deliberately sacrificed himself to damage their flagship. "Retreat," War Commander Zeftal ordered, his voice shaken. "All ships fall back to the outer system." The HFY fleet withdrew, leaving the humans in control of the battlefield. But Morrison knew they couldn't stay. More alien ships would arrive soon, and his fleet was too damaged to fight another battle. "All ships, prepare for emergency jump," Morrison ordered. "We're going home." As the human fleet limped back toward Earth, War Commander Zeftal studied the battle reports with growing unease. The humans had lost 4 ships and 17 fighters, while the HFY had lost only 2 ships and suffered damage to several others. By any military standard, the HFY had won, but it didn't feel like victory. The humans had attacked with impossible courage, using tactics that defied logic, and one of them had deliberately destroyed himself to damage a HFY ship. No civilized species fought that way. "Send a message to High Commander Valthera," Zeftal ordered, "that the humans are not what they appear to be. They fight like demons, and they show no fear of death. You may have underestimated them." News of the battle at Wolf 359 spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. On dozens of worlds and hundreds of star systems, alien species that had lived under HFY rule for centuries suddenly had something they had not felt in generations. Hope. Ambassador Treyanoch of the Zillanai Republic sat in his private chambers on the planet Kelros, reading the intelligence reports with growing excitement. The Zilani were a peaceful species, tall and thin, with pale green skin and large eyes. They had been conquered by the HFY 300 years ago, and had served as unwilling subjects ever since. "Is this report accurate?" Treyanoch asked his aide, a younger Zilani named Morden. "Our spies confirm it, Ambassador. The humans attacked a HFY forward base with only 12 ships. They damaged several HFY vessels and destroyed a command ship before escaping. The HFY fleet actually retreated from the battle." Treyanoch stood and walked to his window, looking out at the HFY patrol ships that constantly circled their world. "No one has made the HFY retreat in over 1,000 years. What kind of species are these humans?" "Small, according to our sources. They only discovered faster than light travel recently. But they fight with a fury that the HFY have never encountered before." On the other side of the galaxy, similar conversations were taking place among the Vorthan Commonwealth, the Nixari clans, and dozens of other species. All of them had been conquered or intimidated by the HFY collective. All of them had dreamed of freedom, but never dared to act on those dreams. Until now. On the HFY homeworld of HFY Prime, High Commander Valthera called an emergency meeting of the War Council. The massive crystalline chamber was filled with the greatest military minds of the collective, their silver-blue skin gleaming in the strange light that filtered through the crystal walls. War Commander Zeftal Valthera said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "Explain to the Council how a force of 12 primitive ships managed to damage our forward base." Zeftal stepped forward, his head bowed in shame. "High Commander, the humans fight unlike any species we have encountered. They use no formation, no discipline, no logic. They attack from all directions at once, and they seem to have no fear of death.
I'll war marshal.
The most aggressive member of the council slammed his fist on the crystal table. 12 ships, Zefdal. 12 ships against 50 of ours, and you allowed them to escape. They destroyed themselves rather than be captured, Zefdal replied. One of their pilots flew his damaged fighter directly into our command ship, detonating his entire vessel to cause damage. I have never seen such behavior. Valtheris studied the battle reports on her holographic display. The tactical analysis showed that the humans had used completely unconventional strategies. They had ignored all accepted rules of space combat, fighting more like wild animals than civilized beings. Perhaps that is their advantage, she said quietly. They are not civilized. They are savages who have somehow learned to build starships. On Earth, Admiral Morrison sat in his office at Defense Command, staring at intelligence reports that would have seemed impossible just months ago. The attack on Wolf 359 had succeeded beyond their wildest hopes, but not in the way they had expected. Dr. Richard Hayes entered the office, carrying a datapad and looking both excited and worried. Admiral, we're receiving communications from Edmala. Across the galaxy, dozens of alien species are trying to contact us. Morrison looked up from his reports. The Kethfer, sir. Other species. They're all asking the same question. How did we make the Kethfer retreat? What do you mean, Doctor? Hayes activated a holographic display showing a star map of the local galaxy. Red dots marked Kethfer-controlled systems, while blue dots showed the locations of the new communications. It seems the Kethfer control a much larger area than we realized. They rule over hundreds of species across thousands of star systems, and apparently, none of those species have ever successfully resisted them before. Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. You're saying we accidentally picked a fight with the galaxy's biggest empire? It gets worse, sir, according to these. Communications, the Kethfer, are considered unbeatable. They've been expanding their territory for over 2,000 years. Some of these species have been under their rule for centuries, and now they're all watching to see what we do next. Exactly. Ambassador Carol White, Earth's first interstellar diplomat, worked around the clock to establish communication with the alien species that were reaching out to humanity. Her office in the United Nations building had been converted into an alien communication center, filled with translation equipment and star charts. We're getting messages from the Zilani Republic, the Vorthan Commonwealth, the Nexori clans, and at least 20 other species, she reported to President Davis. They all want to know if we're planning to continue fighting the Kethfer. What are we telling them? The president asked. The truth. This whole thing started as a misunderstanding, but now we're committed to defending ourselves. How are they responding to that? Carol smiled for the first time in weeks. Several of them are offering to help. The first species to make contact was the Zilani Republic. Ambassador Treonok managed to send a message through hidden communication channels that the Kethver didn't monitor. People of Earth, the translated message said, we have watched your battle with the Kethver Collective with great interest. For 300 years, my people have served as unwilling subjects of the Collective. We have seen dozens of species conquered or destroyed by their power. You are the first to make them retreat from battle. If you are willing to continue this, fight, the Zilani Republic offers our assistance. We have ships, weapons, and knowledge of Kethver tactics that might help you. But we must be careful. If the Kethver discover our communications, they will destroy our world. Similar messages arrived from other species. The Vorthon offered advanced shield technology. The Nexari promised to share their knowledge of Kethver. Weaknesses. Even species that had never been conquered by the Kethver expressed interest in supporting humanity. It seems we've started something bigger than we intended, President Davis said during an emergency cabinet meeting. Half the galaxy wants to help us fight the Kethver, and the other half is probably terrified that we'll lose and bring Kethver vengeance down on everyone, added General Chen. Meanwhile, Admiral Morrison was promoted to overall commander of Earth's defense forces. His tactical innovations at Wolf 359 had impressed even the alien species that were now offering to help. Chaotic, unpredictable fighting style that had confused the Kethver was being studied by military experts across the galaxy, Captain. Lisa Carter, now commanding the rebuilt UAS Defiance, worked with Zilani engineers to upgrade human weapons systems. The aliens shared technology that they had secretly developed over centuries of occupation, always planning for a day when they might be free to use it. The Kethfer rely on their superior firepower and disciplined formations, explained Zilani engineer Volter. But your tactics at Wolf 359 disrupted their formation completely. If we can improve your weapons and shields, your chaotic fighting style might be even more effective. But the Kethfer were not sitting idle. High Commander Valthara had ordered a massive military buildup. Fleets that had been scattered across the galaxy were being recalled to deal with the human threat. The collective had never faced organized resistance before, and they were determined to crush it before it could spread. The humans have infected the galaxy with their madness, War Marshal Quindar declared to the War Council. Already we are detecting increased communication between our subject species. Some of them are asking questions about their obligations to the collective. We must destroy the humans quickly before their rebellion spreads. I agree, Valthera said. But we must also be careful. The humans have proven that they are more dangerous than they appear. We will not underestimate them again. As both sides prepared for a larger conflict, neither humans nor Kethfer realized that an even greater threat was approaching. At the edge of the galaxy, long-range sensors were detecting something that would change everything. The Devourer. Swarm, an ancient enemy that consumed entire worlds, was moving toward their sector of space. The war between humanity and the Kethfer collective was about to become the least of everyone's problems. The final battle began at Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UES Horizon. Watching the massive Kethfer fleet approach through the darkness of space, 3 months had passed since the attack on Wolf 359, and both sides had spent that time preparing for this moment. The human fleet had grown from 12 ships to 47, thanks to help from their new alien allies. Zilani shield generators protected the human vessels, while Vorthan weapon systems gave them more firepower than they had ever possessed. The ships still looked small compared to what they faced, but they were no longer the helpless exploration vessels that had first encountered the Kethfer. Status report, Morrison ordered. Kethfer fleet consists of 230 ships, reported Captain Lisa Carter from her position at the tactical station. High Commander Valthara is commanding personally from their flagship. Morrison nodded grimly. Even with their new allies and improved technology, the humans were still outnumbered 5-1. This would be the battle that decided the fate of Earth and possibly the entire galaxy. On the Kethfer flagship, High Commander Valthara studied the human formation with cold calculation. The humans had arranged their ships in the same chaotic pattern they had used at Wolf 359, but this time, the Kethfer were ready for their unconventional tactics. War Marshal Quinder, begin the attack, she ordered. Show these humans what happens to those who challenge the collective. The Kethfer fleet moved forward in perfect formation, their crystal ships gleaming like deadly jewels in the light of Saturn's rings. Energy weapons charged across hundreds of vessels, preparing to unleash destruction on a scale that had never been seen in the solar system. The battle began with a thunderous exchange of fire. Kethfer energy beams lanced across space, meeting the combined firepower of human and alien alliance ships. The improved human vessels fought better than ever before, but the Kethvar had learned from their previous encounters. They adapted quickly to human tactics, using their superior numbers to overwhelm the chaotic formations. For 3 hours, the battle raged across the space near Titan. Ships exploded on both sides, turning the battlefield into a graveyard of twisted metal and crystal. The human ship U.S. Courage was destroyed when 3 Kethfer cruisers focused their fire on it. The alien flagship Zilani Pride fell when Kethfer fighters swarmed through its defenses. We're losing too many ships, Captain Carter reported, her voice tense with strain. The Kethfer are adapting to our tactics faster than we hoped. Morrison watched the tactical display with growing desperation. The Alliance was fighting bravely, but they were still being overwhelmed by superior numbers and technology. In another hour, maybe 2, the Kethvar would break through their defenses and proceed to attack. Earth itself. That's when the long-range sensors detected something that changed everything. Admiral called Lieutenant Amy Walsh from her communications. Station, I'm picking up massive energy signatures at the edge of the system. Something big is coming. Kethfer reinforcements? Morrison asked. No, sir. These signatures are different. Much different. The main display, new contacts began appearing at the edge of the solar system. Ships, if they could be called that, began emerging from hyperspace. But these vessels looked nothing like anything built by any known species. They were dark, angular things that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. And there were thousands of them. High Commander Valthera received the same sensor readings on her flagship. What are those ships? She demanded. Unknown, High Commander, her tactical officer replied. They do not match any known species in our database, and they are scanning both our fleets. War Commander Zefdal, who had been commanding a wing of the Kethfer fleet, suddenly appeared on the communications screen. His face was pale with fear. High Commander, those ships, I think they might be the Devourer Swarm. Belthara felt her blood turn cold. The Devourer Swarm was a legend, a story told to frighten young Kethfer. Ancient records spoke of mechanical beings that consumed entire worlds, leaving nothing behind but empty space. But those were just stories, weren't they? Impossible. She said, the swarm was destroyed thousands of years ago. High Commander, her science officer interrupted, the unknown ships are moving toward both fleets. They are not responding to any communication attempts, and they are charging weapons. Admiral Morrison received similar reports from his own sensors. Dr. Richard Hayes, who had been monitoring alien communications from Earth, sent an urgent message to the fleet. Admiral, we are receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. Every species is reporting the same thing. The mechanical swarm that ancient records call the Devourers has returned. They consume everything in their path, turning entire worlds into raw materials for more ships. Morrison stared at the sensor display showing thousands of dark ships approaching. The human and Kethfer fleets were still fighting each other when they should be preparing to face this new threat. Ordered, sir? Amy Walsh asked, surprised. Do it? Moments later, High Commander Valthara's image appeared on the main screen. She looked as shocked to see Morrison as he was to be talking to her. Human Commander, she said, her voice stiff with formal protocol. You choose a strange time to surrender. I'm not surrendering, Morrison replied. I'm offering an alliance. So those ships approaching us will destroy both our fleets if we keep fighting each other. We need to work together. Valthera was quiet for a long moment, studying Morrison's face. Behind her, alarms could be heard as her crew prepared for the new threat. You would trust the Kethfer after we have been at war, she asked. I would trust anyone who wants to survive what's coming, Morrison answered. The question is, do you trust us? Before Valthara could answer, the Devourer ships opened fire. Dark energy beams struck both human and Kethfer vessels without discrimination. The mechanical beings did not care about the war between organic species. They only cared about harvesting materials to build more of themselves. All human ships cease fire on Kethfer vessels, Morrison ordered. Target the Devourer ships only. Valthara made the same decision moments later. All Kethfer forces, new target priority. The mechanical ships are the primary threat. Change was immediate and dramatic. Human and Kethfer ships that had been trying to destroy each other suddenly turned their weapons on the approaching swarm. The chaotic human tactics, combined with disciplined Kethfer, Formations created a defensive pattern that neither side could have achieved alone. Captain Lisa. Carter found herself fighting alongside War Commander Zephtile when both their ships were damaged and boarded by Devourer drones. The mechanical beings were terrifying, looking like metal spiders with glowing red eyes and razor-sharp claws. This way, Zephtile called, firing his weapon at a group of drones. "The engine room is secure." "Right behind you," Carter replied, covering his retreat with her own weapon as they fought side by side through the corridors of the damaged ship. Carter realized that the HFY warrior was not the monster she had expected. He was brave, intelligent, just as determined to survive as any human. The battle against the Devourer swarm lasted for 6 hours. Ships from a dozen different species joined the fight as word spread across the galaxy. The Zelani Republic sent their hidden fleet. The Vorthan Commonwealth emerged from the shadows where they had been hiding for centuries. Even species that had never met before worked together against the common threat. The turning point came when Admiral Morrison and High Commander Valthera coordinated a joint attack on the Devourer command ship. As human fighters, using their unpredictable tactics, created openings in the enemy defenses, while HFY heavy cruisers delivered devastating firepower. Now, Morrison called over the combined fleet communication channel. All ships concentrate fire on the command ship. The massive Devourer vessel, larger than anything else on the battlefield, cracked under the combined assault. When it exploded, the other mechanical ships seemed to lose coordination. Without their central command, they became easier targets. For the Allied fleet, by the time the battle was over, the space around Titan was filled with the wreckage of Devourer ships. The Alliance had won, but at a terrible cost. Nearly half of both fleets had been destroyed or damaged. President Kevin Davis stood in the United Nations building on Earth, speaking to representatives from dozens of worlds via holographic communication. High Commander Valthera was among them, along with Ambassador Trayanok from the Zelani Republic and leaders from species across the galaxy. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all kinds," President Davis began. "Today we have seen what we can accomplish. When we work together, the Devourer swarm has been defeated, but they may return. We propose the formation of a galactic defense alliance dedicated to protecting all worlds from threats like this." High Commander Valthara spoke from her holographic projection. "The HFY Collective agrees to this alliance. We have learned that there are enemies far more dangerous than any dispute between our species." Ambassador Trayanok smiled. The first time his species had been free to express joy in 3 centuries. The Zelani Republic is honored to join as a founding member.